Blog Talk Radio.
Mi chiamo Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit, Neye Ojira Da, Medinde Ojira Fo, Kwesi Ranehmpata Akan, Akwamumai Namaruka Tipi Mu Ojira Fo, Ojira Mai Mu. Greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning Africans, black people. Today is Ojira Day, Purification Day. My name is Ojirafo Kwesi Ranehmpata Akan, Ojirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America, within Ojiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I'll say we thank you once again for tuning into the broadcast. We've opened up the chat room. If you have any questions or comments in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk. If you have any questions or comments on the phone line, simply hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. We have 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. We have Akan Fo Nanasom, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion on Joda Monday nights, where we deal specifically with the Akan expression of Nanasom, of the ancestral religion, first and foremost because we are Akan, secondly because of the misinformation being propagated regarding Akan cosmology, culture, ritual practice, ancestral religion, and so forth from individuals in this Western Hemisphere, as well as those from the continent who have been infected with white pseudo-religion, Christianity, Islam, and so forth, and white culture in general. Their infection manifests in their presentation of Akan ancestral religion. So that infection is wanting with regard to authentic information. We therefore deal with ancient, authentic Akan ancestral religion. That deals with our ancestral inheritance from ancient Kanat, which is a title of the Kan land, ancient Nubia. Our people migrated from ancient Kanat, Nubia, the Kan land, reestablished ourselves a couple of thousand years ago in the western part of the continent, in the empire of Akana or Ghana. 1,000 years later, after Muslim invasions, we will force some of our people to move further south towards the forest belt regions in the areas of today's contemporary Ivory Coast and Republic of Ghana. A few hundred years later, some of our people were forced from those areas into North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe during the Musuo Kessie, the Great Perversity, the enslavement era. This is how we ended up in the Western Hemisphere. Yet we maintained our ancestral religious traditions. Thus, the Akan ancestral religion in Suriname in South America is Winti. The Akan ancestral religion in Jamaica is Obia. The Akan ancestral religion in North America, born of our blood circles for hundreds of years, maintained is Hoodoo, from the Akan term Undu, which means medicine, from roots, trees, plant life, but also to become heavy with the spirit, with spirit possession, spirit communication, and so forth. So we deal with ancient, authentic Akan ancestral religion, clarifying and purifying the understanding of concepts dealing with ancestresses and ancestors, the Nanano Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, the nature and function of the Abosom, the forces in nature, the nature and function of Inyamewa and Inyame, the great mother and great father, supreme being, NYANKOPON and NYANKONTON, the creator and creatress, and much more. On Eguada, Wednesday, Marketplace Day, which is Akwada, and Awukuda Wednesday, we have Egua Marketplace. We showcase Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit businesses, organizations, and institutions, those who have served our community and continue to serve our community in a positive capacity, who maintain their ancestral religious values, which informs their service to the community. So we've showcased a number of businesses, organizations, and institutions. We also talk about the philosophical foundation to nation building rooted in an ancestral religious set of values, an approach to economic development as published in our OCOM economic development model, an approach to economic development rooted in our ancestral religious values. So this is what we deal with on Egua Marketplace Day on Wednesday nights, on Ukuda, on Yauda Thursday nights, Yada Abada, we have Amanne, Sim, Affairs of the Nation. We deal with specific issues that are confronting us as Afurakani people in the Western Hemisphere within ODWIRA mind, the purified ODWIRA Amanne nation mind in the West, the land of the setting sun. That is our designation for Afurakani people in the land of the setting sun, the purified nation ODWIRA mind. We have a specific locative identity born of the reality that once we were forced into this region of the Earth Mother's body, we were directed by our ancestresses and ancestors of our direct blood circles to coalesce in a specific region of the Earth Mother's body, blend ancestral blood circles, interface with Asase Afua and Asase Ya, the two Earth Mother divinities in this region of their body and so forth, interface with the unique expression of the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, the divinities as they manifest in this region, consume the plant life, animal life, mineral life, and so forth from this specific region. The confluence of these different interactions forges a locative identity for the people who take up residence in this region, and therefore we have a unique expression of culture, a unique expression of ancestral religion, a unique expression of what we call Amanne nationism, which is a purification of nationalism. When we talk about nationism, Amanne, we're talking about the nation being a living, breathing entity governed by specific abosom, and we as cells within that organal structure, we serve the organal structure and the abosom that govern that organal structure as we function interdependently upon one another. We have a holistic approach rooted in our ancestral religious values to nation building. So we're talking about Amanne nationism, the purification of nationalism. And of course, we have our book, ODWIRA Mind, that deals with that in detail, 2 volumes of that from our ODWIRA Mind Afashe, the Purified Nation Conference, which we have in June around the solstice, dealing with nationism, the purification of nationalism, and so forth. So we can get into that in the publication. So we deal with issues from a nationist perspective and how to address them from a nationist perspective. Tonight is Benada, Abenada Tuesday. We have ODWIRA. ODWIRA means purification. It also means to celebrate a ceremony of purification. We always talk about the fact that ODWIRA purification operationalizes Nanason. Purification operationalizes Afuraitkaitnit, or African ancestral religion. In this broadcast, we showcase and discuss and examine how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives as Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people. When we talk about ancestral religion, in essence, we're talking about the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and thus realign ourselves with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law, the ritual restoration of divine balance, these are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion of Nanason. ODWIRA purification operationalizes Nanason. Purification operationalizes our practice of ritually incorporating law, ritually restoring balance. It is by this means that we live our culture, our way of life, which is the divine law or love of order, the divine acceptance of order, and the divine hate, repulsion, rejection of disorder and its purveyors. We accept what we need to accept in harmony with order, and we reject what we need to reject in harmony with order. This is our way of life as we execute our function in creation. When we make legitimate mistakes, then we engage the ritual process to incorporate divine law and restore divine balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions. so we can continue to execute our function in creation in harmony with our ancestral way of life or culture. So this is the means by which, when we're talking about aligning every thought, every intention, every action, every moment of every day, and when we make mistakes, we realign ourselves ritually. This is how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives. When you're seeking to align every thought, intention, and action with divine order every moment of every day, then ancestral religion impacts that. When you have a real religion, we talk about ancestral religion in reality. Not just the Akan expression. We deal with that on Joda on Monday nights, but on ODWIRA, Benada Tuesday nights, we talk about ancestral religion in general, wherever Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people exist in the world, inclusive of us in the Western Hemisphere who maintained our ancestral religious tradition. And because we did that, we were empowered and guided by the Nananom Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of our direct blood circles, to wage war against the whites and their offspring, force the end of enslavement through warfare, taking up metal armaments, as well as utilizing root work for chemical and biological warfare, which we waged against our enemies. We forced the end of enslavement through incessant warfare, empowered and guided through ancestral religious practice. That is what freed our people, and this is what's going to complete that process. So this is what we deal with on Benada Tuesday nights. So this broadcast, actually, it's a part 3 in reality because we did a 2-part series on RA-RAIT, the Creatress of the universe. And the second portion was Afuraitkaitnit. We went into some more detail tonight. RA-RAIT, Genealogy of the Creatress and Reverence of the Afuraitkaitnit woman. Now, we want to get into the genealogy of RA-RAIT, the Creatress of the universe, her matriclan inheritance, and its imprint upon the Ba'et, the spirit of the Afuraitkaitnit African black woman. Proper notions of reverence are contextualized through a proper understanding and recognition of the collective ancestry of Afuraitkaitnit African women. This is key to strong relationships between Afurakani men and Afuraitkaitnit women, and the furtherance of Amanne, which is Nationism. And of course, when we say Afurakan, Afuraitkaitnit, we're talking about the Ka of Afura, the land of Afura, the creator of the land, Kayat of Afurait, the creatress. Of course, we have published our book, Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnit, the origin of the term Africa, where we prove conclusively that the term Africa is born of Afuraka. We are the first and only of any scholar, black or non-black, to prove that and show that in the Medutu, the hieroglyphs, also in the Akan language, and so forth. So this is, of course, why we utilize these terms. So this broadcast is actually concluding a sort of a series that we began on our WordPress, our ODWIRA Sim, Matters of Purification, ODWIRA Sim blog on WordPress. We published a number of articles and so forth in the summer into the fall. And then what we've done since we began broadcasting once again is going through these different articles and examining them in detail. And this is like a culmination of that because that particular series of articles that had to do with the Afurakani man, Afuraitkaitnit woman, the nature of Het Heru and so forth, and her different manifestations, the nature and function of Bast and her different manifestations and so forth. We had a number of different publications. We went through these in detail. This is the final publication in that particular set. So it's a culmination of a set of publications that we put forward. And the central piece is actually this one. This is the first one that we put forward in early summer back in June. When you go to the WordPress site, ojirasim.wordpress.com, the first piece we're going to read from, we'll put the link in the chat room right quick. So the link is in the chat room. And And the title of the piece, we're going to go through it, and then we're going to examine it. This is the foundational piece for this broadcast, and we're going to get into some more detailed information. The title of it is, "It is not necessary to possess the Atenit, the sun, in order to benefit from her radiance." First, we'll go through the information, then we'll go through the symbolism as shown in the imagery and get into this notion of genealogy. RA-RAIT is the creatress of the universe. She employs the feminine aspect of the Atenit, the sun, in order to transmit her divine energy. In the same fashion, Ra is the creator of the universe. In partnership with RA-RAIT, he employs the masculine aspect of Aten, the sun, in order to transmit his divine energy. The Atenit, the sun, is a star. It has become popular to make reference to Afuraitkaitnit, or African women, black women, as cis stars. And we see that all over Facebook and social media in general. As great-great-great-granddaughters of their great progenitress, RA-RAIT, this designation as cis stars is accurate because the Atenit, the sun, is a star. We benefit from the radiance of the Atenit, the sun, through the dispensation of RA-RAIT, the creatress, without seeking to possess it. It is impractical, irresponsible, and impossible to seek to possess the Atenit, the sun. In the same fashion, it is impractical, irresponsible, and impossible to seek to possess every radiant cis star with whom one comes into contact. We unite with our complement through awadiye, which is the Akan term for marriage. In this process, it is not a possession, but a fusion of complementary opposites in harmonious union. And of course, that's facilitated by Het Heru. Our complement becomes our Atenit, our sun, our greatest star, as Afurakani men. All other cis stars are effulgent in their own right, yet we need not seek to possess them to benefit from their radiance. Indeed, we may find that we become scorched in such a futile attempt. As Afurakani men, we recognize the value of the Afuraitkaitnit woman by simply and deliberately allowing her radiance to empower and illuminate us without seeking possession. We must accord the Afuraitkaitnit woman the proper measure of respect, just as we accord that of the great Atenit, the son of RA-RAIT. The benefits of such respect without seeking possession are limitless for us and for the stability of the Afuraitkaitnit Amanne nation. It is not necessary to possess the Atenit, sun, in order to benefit from her radiance. Now, if we collectively, at this point talking about Afurakani men, collectively, if we followed that simple rule, it is not necessary to possess the Atenit sun in order to benefit from her radiance. If we adhere to that collectively, then 90% of the problems, these dysfunctional problems in relationships, will be taken care of. Because many of our people are seeking to possess, which means to control every radiant sister, every sister, and trying to control her thoughts, control her movements, to serve whatever misguided desires that we have. As we said earlier, even with regard to awadiye or marriage, that is not a possession, even when we connect with our greatest Atenit or son, which is a star, of course, the person who becomes our oyere or becomes our wife. She becomes our greatest star. All of the other cis stars are effulgent in their own right. There are many stars all over the place, but she becomes our greatest star, and this is the one that we, of course, fuse with. But even with regard to marriage, that is a fusion of complementary opposites in harmonious union. It is not a possession. So we don't seek to possess, or because possession is control. We seek to, with our wife, with our oyere, our wife, we seek ordered fusion, harmonious fusion, the fusion of complementary opposites. any other sister that we come into contact with, we can be illuminated, we can become empowered without seeking possession. When you go outside beneath the Atenit, the sun, you become illuminated, you become empowered. The energy of the sun stimulates your vitality. You become empowered, energized by that sunlight and so forth. You also are illuminated. If there's darkness and sunlight shows up, then it clears the way. It allows you to see what was in the darkness so you can navigate your way through the darkness so you can reach your destination or engage in the activity you need to engage in. So you become empowered and you become illuminated by the Atenit, by the sun, without seeking to possess the sun. In the same fashion, we become empowered by the Ba'et, the divine living energy emanating from the Afuraitkaitnit woman. We have a Ba, which is the divine living spirit. The Afuraitkaitnit woman has the Ba'et, the divine living spirit. That energy emanating from them, we become empowered by that. When we interface with that energy emanating from them, we also become illuminated by the wisdom that they contain within their matriclan energy structure. We become illuminated by that. We become empowered by them, but you don't have to possess them in order to do that. Now we're going to look at the symbolism and go into some detail about that. So when you look at the symbol, the image that we use for the broadcast, and that's here in the document, you see the Afurakani man, you see the red disk of the sun, and he has his hands in the dua position, palms facing outward, projecting his energy forward, his unique configuration of energy being projected through his hands to the Atenit, which is the shrine of Ra and RA-RAIT. Ra and RA-RAIT are not the Aten and the Atenit. They are not the sun god or the sun goddess. They utilize the sun and other stars as physical transmitters to project their spiritual energy. They are simply shrines that they utilize to project their spiritual energy, transmit their spiritual energy and so forth, and we can communicate with them through these shrines. No different than a shrine that you have in your home. We talk about how shrines are magnifiers of the energy of our bosom divinities as well as Nananom Nsamafo, spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. The Atenit, the sun, is a shrine through which we can communicate with Ra and RA-RAIT, receive the dispensation of energy of Ra and RA-RAIT, and also transmit or provoke our energy so we can provoke a response, so we can become empowered from the energy emanating and dispensed through that orb, but also the illumination coming from the spirit of the divinities that animate that orb. Now, so you see him palms facing outward in the dua position, projecting his energy emanating from his own Ba, divine living energy, projecting and provoking the energy of the Aten, and therefore RA-RAIT and so forth, so he can receive response. Under the sun, the Atenit is one of the daughters of Ra and RA-RAIT, which is Het Heru. She's in the form of the great Kaet, the great cow, emerging from those sacred trees or the sacred bush. She's the one, Het Heru, her energy is the sensual attraction that is the precursor to procreative activity, sexual activity, and the replenishment of its harmony. Het Heru is the divine force in creation. She draws complementary opposites together in a harmonious fusion, in an ordered fusion which manifests harmony. She's the force that draws the Afurakani male and Afuraitkaitnit female together, the Afurakani man, Afuraitkaitnit woman. And of course, our people only. The whites and offspring cannot communicate with the forces in nature. They are spirits of disorder who are repelled by the forces in nature, because the forces in nature, the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, are spirits of order, the embodiments of divine order and creation. The whites and their offspring are cancerous cells within the body of black humanity who are only isolated and slated for execution. So, when we're talking about the deities, we're talking about their relationship with us as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only. That excludes white Europeans, white Americans, white Asians, white Hindus, white Arabs, white pseudo-Native Americans who are just invading Asians, all non-black people are the spirits of disorder, Achiwadiefo. They incarnate in that fashion. There is no exception to that reality. So they cannot deal with the forces of nature on any level. So, Het Heru fuses together, she's the divinity, the feminine force, the Ntorot, the so-called Neter Ntorot, the female divinity, the sensual attraction that is the precursor to sexual activity, procreative activity, and the replenishment of its harmony, which is pleasure. So what that simply means is she is the force that will draw us together. She knows what our divine function in creation is, just like the other Abosom, the forces in nature know that, because, of course, they are grandchildren of the Great Mother and Great Father, Supreme Being. When we are sent into the world as cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, we are cells of specific organs. The organs within your body regulate order within your body. They are children of you, the great organism. And the cells of the organs are your grandchildren, so to speak. And the cells serve their parent organs. When they serve their parent organs, they're serving you, the great body, the great being, at the same time. The Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, are the organs within the great divine body of Amanne and Amen, Nyamewa and Nyame, the great mother and great fathers they call Akan. They are the organs within the great divine body. We are the cells within those organs, so we have parent organs. Some are children of the heart organ, some are children of the liver organ, some are children of the immune system, some are children of the lymphatic system, and so forth. When we serve our parent organs, then we're serving the great body at the same time. So, as organs are regulating order within the great divine body, meaning the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou are regulating order within the great divine body of Amanne and Amen, and they have children, cells. They know what the function of the cells are. They know what the nutrients the cells need. They know what interactions are good for the cells, and they know what interactions are not in harmony with the design of the cells. So when it's time for you to unite with your complement, Het Heru knows what your function in creation is. She knows which individual will facilitate a harmonious fusion. There's a complementary balance for you, and which individual is not. Of course, she does not fuse together males and males and females in the perversity of dissexuality on any level. And of course, she does not fuse Afuraitkaitnit women and Afuraitkaitnit men with any non-Afurakani, non-Afuraitkaitnit individuals, because that is perverse without exception. She only fuses together Afurakani men, Afuraitkaitnit women in harmony, in balance. So she knows what your function is. She knows what your character is. She knows the essential nature and structure of your spirit, why you came into the world, and she knows, of course, those other cells as well, so she can fuse together complementary opposites that balance one another. She's that sensual attraction, which is the precursor to procreative activity. She draws us together. We're put in different positions as we're growing and developing by our ancestresses and ancestors, our Nananom and Samafo, to come across the individual who is our harmonious complement. Of course, we have lived in previous lifetimes before. We have reincarnated in this incarnation and so forth. The Samafo, our ancestresses and ancestors, working from the spirit realm into the physical realm, put us in position to come into contact with the individual who is our harmonious complement, whether one person is paying attention or both. Sometimes one person is involved in misinformation and pseudo-religion, things like that, or just white culture in general, but the other person is focused and aligning with their divine function, engaged in ancestral religious practice, attuning to the Abosom and Orisha and so forth, and they will push the person into position to come across the other individual, or the other individual to come across this person and so forth. We cross paths. Het Heru will facilitate that fusion. That magnetic attraction is born of that divine function you both have that happens to be and is naturally complementary. And then there's a physical draw, there's a physical attraction. She causes that to take place. There's a fusion of these functions. We recognize that instinctively, that fusion physically, where people become married and so forth. She governs that marriage process. She governs the physical fusion, copulation. Then she governs the fusion of complementary opposites through copulation with the fusion of the sperm and ovum cell. And then the, cell division takes place and so forth, and implantation in the womb, and on and on and on. That fusion of complementary opposites is an ordered fusion based on the reality that we have a divine function executing creation, both of us. She knows that, and she fuses those and influences us to connect with those who we should be connected with and repel those who we should not be connected with, because she knows what's in our ka, our soul, our divine consciousness. She facilitates that process, and once it's fused, the replenishment of that harmony, that ordered fusion. She causes the fusion, she facilitates that fusion, and then the replenishment of that fusion, that ordered fusion or that harmony. Harmony is a manifestation of divine order. When things are ordered, then that's when harmony manifests. It's a manifestation of divine order. If something is in disorder, then there will not be any harmony. But when there's harmony, that means it's a manifestation of order. And that harmony, if somebody said draw a picture of harmony, that's simply a manifestation of order. But the way harmony is expressed is beauty. This is why we say beauty is not a quality. Beauty, Nefert, is a deity. That is the title of Het Heru. She expresses the divine harmony that she facilitates when she engages in the fusion of complementary opposites, that ordered fusion. When the ordered fusion takes place, harmony manifests, and that is expressed as beauty. So we're talking about her in that context. So when he's provoking the energy of the Aten, the sun, projecting his energy to provoke the energy of that that's contained within that shrine of Ra and RA-RAIT, one of her daughters, Het Heru, is standing there in the form of that sacred Atenit boy, that animal totem, and therefore he is attuning to her as well. And when he attunes to this divinity that governs ordered fusion and the fusion of complementary opposites, then he can operate within the world. And when he comes in contact with cis stars that are not his divine complement, yet they're effulgent in their own right, and they can empower and they can illuminate simply by the nature of their presence, that he can receive that empowerment, he can receive that illumination without seeking to possess them. But then when he comes in contact with the one that is his harmonious complement, because it's facilitated by Het Heru and she lets him know this is the one, then he doesn't seek to possess her, he simply fuses with her because she's fusing with him as well. And he benefits from that. And, of course, the woman benefits as well. There's an exchange of the Ba and the Ba'et, the divine living energy that animates us. Talk about that Ba and Ba'et very quickly in the in the blog, second portion, second installment of the series, on the 4-part series on the female divinity Ba, who has the head of the cat and so forth. We'll read that section dealing with the Ba and Ba'et. Just as the heart sends blood throughout the circulatory system, feeding all of the organs and structures, so does the spiritual heart center, the Ab, send energy throughout the spirit body, feeding, nourishing the spiritual anatomy. You have a spirit body, in Akan it's called Sum Sum, in H. Kemet it's called Sahu, that is the spirit body. Just like you have a physical body with organs and structures and so forth, you have a spirit body, of course, that manifests as a saman, quote-unquote, ghost when somebody makes their transition. But you see that spirit body that prefigures the existence of the physical body and takes up residence in the physical body. And when the physical body deteriorates and so forth and dies, then the spirit body separates. Just like you have a heart, it sends blood throughout the circulatory system, feeding all of the organs and structures, so does the spiritual heart center, that radiant center within the spirit body, send energy throughout the spirit body, feeding, nourishing the spiritual anatomy. energetic projections from the spiritual heart center extend beyond the physical body and the kahibit, the aura, and reach those connected to us in the world. So we're talking about the Ba and Ba'at. When you see the bird in ancient Kemet, you see the little bird with the head of the human being, of the person that they're talking about, or sometimes it's simply the bird with a bowl of incense burning in front of it. That's showing that the Ba, the divine living energy within you, is a fiery, that's burning incense, a fire power that's also animate. The bird with the wings animates or fans the flames of that fire. So there's a moving, animate fire that's within you. That's what the Ba, the divine living energy, is. The Ba and the Ba'at, the divine living energy, that divine force assigned to you and dwelling within you, that little bird sitting within your chest. When you look at the lung and heart and lung structure, the heart is like the breast of the bird, the lungs is like the folded down wings, and when they expand and contract or inflate, that's the expansion and contraction of the wings of the bird, fanning the flame, so to speak, the energy within the bloodstream. Not only the oxygen, but the life force energy within the oxygen is fanned through the expansion and contraction of the lungs and so forth. So you have that little bird sitting in your chest. You can direct that energy that's being fanned. Its flames are being fanned throughout the different parts of your body and so forth. That energy that's circulating within you is also the energy that you project outwardly, like the image for the show. He's projecting his energy, his Ba energy, and the female will be her Ba'at energy, her divine living energy, projecting it ritually to the shrine of the divinity. And there's a bridge of energy from you to the shrine of the divinity. And now that there's an energetic link between your Ba and the great Ba of the deity, now there's a transmission that takes place, and there's a traveling that takes place between that energetic link, and via that energetic link, and then spirit possession can take place. Spirit communication can take place through that bridge of energy that's created. It's kind of like when you take a deep breath, close your mouth, close your nose, and so forth, there's a pocket of air within your lungs. When you open your mouth and open your nose and so forth, the little pocket of air that's contained within your lungs is linked through the trachea to the great source of air outside. Now there's a direct link to the great source and the portion that's within you. When we engage the ritual process and project our energy, our Ba, to the Ba, with the energy of the Ba or the Ba of the male and female divinities, there's an energetic bridge that's created through which the Abosom travel and possess, as well as the Nsamanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors, travel through that energetic bridge to possess and influence us and direct us towards thoughts, intentions, and actions, and individuals and circumstances and events that are in harmony with divine order, and away from those things that are out of harmony with divine order. So this is what's taking place here in that imagery when he's projecting his Ba, divine living energy, and of course the female will project her Ba'at, her divine living energy, to the shrine of the Abosom, the divinity, and so forth. And in this particular piece, you have Het Heru up under the sun. She is a child of Ra and Ra'at, an eye drop, quote unquote, from the Aten, the Atenit, the sun, that golden eye drop of energy is how she's born and so forth. And she's facilitating that union, which he will come in contact with the woman that he should be connected to, and she will facilitate that harmonious fusion. When it's other sisters, as we said, or sisters, we do not need to be engaged with regard to a complementary fusion. We can still benefit from their radiance without seeking possession. So that's what's taking place here. Of course, in the middle is the actual image of the Aten, the sun, and on the right we have RA-RAIT, the creatress of the universe. Now, we talked about a matriclan inheritance, talking about the genealogy of RA-RAIT, the creatress, and how that impacts and imprints itself on the Afuraitkaitnit woman, the collective ancestry of the Afuraitkaitnit woman. And of course, RA-RAIT is our great-great-great-grandmother as well as Afurakani men, so that affects us as well. We said, as great-great-great-granddaughters of their great progenitress, RA-RAIT, this designation as sisters in reality is an accurate one. So what is this lineage, what is this blood circle lineage that we're talking about? When you deal directly with the abosom, deal directly with the deity through spirit possession, spirit communication, and when we're talking about ancestral religion or talking about RA-RAIT or these different divinities, we're not just reading, sections of text and philosophizing about the nature of these deities and what their colors mean and what their movements are. We're actually engaged with them. We're communicating directly with them, being informed by them, being empowered by them, being guided by them. No different than you're interfacing with different aspects of creation. You're empowered by sunlight. You're empowered by the oceans and rivers and so forth. You're empowered by the atmosphere, the air in the atmosphere, the oxygen and so forth. You're empowered by the plant life, animal life, and mineral life, which you take those things into your body, nutrients to empower yourself. But you're also empowered by the spirits that animate the sun, different planets, the black substance of space, the oceans, rivers, atmosphere, mountains, and so forth, the inner core of earth, these spiritual forces that empower and fortify your spirit body and illuminate you and help you realign yourself with your own consciousness so you can make proper decisions and execute your function in creation. So when we're talking about these deities, we're talking about them from a familial perspective. As Afurakani and Afuraitkaitnit people, we are directly descendant of these forces in creation. There's a difference in class with regard to our nature as Onipa or Nnipa, plural, human beings in relationship to deities. Just like there's a difference between Moa or animals, or Ndria or plant life, or Asase, the earth itself, and Nipa, human beings. These are different classes of being. The human class, Nipa, is a class of being. Animals, Moa, are a class of being, even though nonsensically some of our people are trying to force human beings into the class of animals and saying we evolved from animals and all this other nonsense. But human beings are a specific class. Moa, animals are a specific class. Ndria, plant life, is a specific class. And of course, Asase, mineral life, is a specific class. But that's also different from the abosom, the forces in nature. They are their own class of being. Human beings are not becoming deities. Human beings are not becoming Orisha, not becoming abosom, not becoming, Vodou and so forth. When we make transition, become ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated, then we have an increase in power and an increase in responsibility that's commensurate with that increase in power when we live in harmony with divine order. And then our functions and our influences on our living relatives are similar to the functions of Orisha and Vodou and so forth, because we have a greater increase in power and influence that we can wield within our clans and those who are still alive. So it's very similar, because as Nananom Nsamampo, spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, we receive the energy of the abosom and transmit that to our clan members. That's what ancestresses and ancestors do. Just like they pass on genetic material to us, DNA from the mother side and father side, and therefore specific characteristics that make us unique from other clans. They also pass on the energy of the abosom that animated that sperm cell, and the patriclan abosom that animated that sperm cell, the matriclan abosom deity that animated that ovum cell. They pass on the energy, the tumi, as it's called in Akan, or Ashe, as it's called in Yoruba, the divine power of these deities to us as well. It comes through them. The energy, the tumi of the abosom, comes through our ancestresses and ancestors and passed directly to us. So it's a matriclan and patriclan inheritance. When they live in harmony with divine order on a consistent basis, when they were alive here on earth, that small percentage of them who do that, and when they make transition, they were Nananom Mpanyinfo, or spiritually cultivated elders and eldresses here. Of course, many elders and eldresses, there's a difference between those who are older and those who are elder. Some people reach old age, but they haven't lived in harmony with divine order on a consistent basis. They didn't demonstrate that. So they were living in disorder or just kind of haphazardly and so forth, when they make their transition, they are not in the class of Nananom Nsamafo or spiritually cultivated Nsamafo ancestresses and ancestors. They're just regular Nsamafo, just regular deceased people. But those who lived in harmony with divine order while they were here consistently and achieved that highest societal office of Nana or elder or elderess, when they transition, they become part of the class of Nananom Nsamafo, spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. So not only do they pass on, like they did in the past, physically, the genetic material, but they have the capacity and the responsibility to pass on the energy, the divine energy of the patriclan abosom and matriclan abosom that govern us, and they wield that power and that influence in a greater capacity. So it feels similar to the interfacing we have with the divinities, but they're not deities. They're just people with increased power and influence. So these are different classes of being. But when we talk about the collective ancestry, we are like cells, and of course the deities are the organs, and the body is the supreme being, and then the water system within the body that's circulating is the realm of the ancestresses and ancestors. And that water makes up the majority percentage of a cell, and when the cell dies, then the water that was in the cell goes back to the community of quote-unquote water that's within the body, the interstitial fluid and all of that. But then once cells reconstitute and reborn, then some of that water is taken within those cells, and that's that ancestral element returning to those cells and so forth. So this is that structure. But the cells are children of the organs are children of the great body and so forth. So when we're talking about deities, we're talking about a matriclan and patriclan inheritance. We have a familial relationship with them. We receive their energy, receive their influence. There's not just some spirits out there, and we're just asking for some help or some direction or praying and begging for money and things like that. These, in reality, it's like the earth is our mother, the fertile earth mother and barren earth mother and so forth, because we are, denizens of earth and so forth. We're her children, the fertile earth mother's children, in the same capacity. We are children of the abosom directly, but we are of a different class, just like animal life, plant life, mineral life, and we're going to get into these animal totems and plant totems and so forth, but we are children. It's a familial relationship. So let's look at a straight matriclan blood circle with regard to the deities to see what we're talking about. You look at Aset, for example. You look at Asar, Aset, Set, and Nebuchadnezzar. Asar operating through the black soil substance of earth. He's a regulator of divine order, has a regulatory function in creation. Set operating through those river waters of earth. She also has a regulatory function in creation. Set operating through the red earth, desert as well as red clay and so forth. Has a regulatory function. Nebuchadnezzar operating through the rain waters of earth. She has a regulatory function in the physical body. Sar governing the endocrine system with the pituitary gland, which is the master gland that sends, through hormonal secretions, directives to the various other glands in that system, regulating order within the body. That's his regulatory function. Set governing the reproductive system, regulating, birth and nurturing and everything else within the body, as well as healing. Set governing the nervous system, the communicative structure. Set is Kwekwa Nansi in Akan, he's Eshu, and Legba in Yoruba, in Vodun, the messenger. That messenger system is the nervous system. In Akan, he's Kwekwa Nansi, the great spider, and that spider web that permeates all of creation is in your body is the worldwide web, in your body is the nervous system and so forth. Nebuchadnezzar is the renal system within the body. The water system, of course, that the kidneys and so forth that regulate fluid balance in the body, but also regulate mineral balance in the body. She's a healer and so forth, healeress. So these forces in creation that regulate natural cycles in the body and regulate natural cycles on earth and so forth have a regulatory function within creation. Of course, they have their shrines within the stars, Sa, which is Orion, the abode of Alsar, and Sapatit, so-called Sirius or Sothis, the abode of Set as well as Nebuchadnezzar, and Mesketu, the great bears, the abode of Set in the sky and so forth, and they operate through the sun, moon, and planets. Mercury is Set in Nebuchadnezzar, and when Alsar and Set are operating in harmony with Ra and RA-RAIT, they operate through the sun, the Atenit, but when they're operating through the moon, they're called Ajo and Ajwa and Akan, Ucho and Uchoat in ancient Kemet, operating through the moon and so forth. So, in different phases of creation, these different forces in nature that regulate order and natural cycles in creation manifest. The stellar region, through the planetary, the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies and so forth, on the physical earth itself, and in your body and the different aspects of your spirit and so forth. You see who they are. Set is a mother divinity, for example. Nebuchadnezzar is a mother divinity. She's called Akua and Akan, and Agberu, the wife of Eshu in Yoruba, and Koni Koni, the wife of Legba in Vodun. And Set is called Oduwa in Yoruba, and Minona in Vodun, Ajwa and Akan, as well as Esi and Akan and so forth. So, they are children, however, of Geb and Nut. You'll see Geb is the crust of the earth. Nut is bent over Geb as the atmosphere, so the union of the earth and the sky, or the crust of the earth and the sky, because Geb is not the entire earth itself. He's dealing with the crust of the earth. You have the upper crust, lower crust. You have the upper mantle, lower mantle. You have the core, the inner core, the inner core, and the inner core, and so forth. But that crust of the earth is Geb, and then Nut has been over Geb, the atmosphere and the union of earth and sky and so forth. They will talk about giving birth, of course, to Alsar, Set, and Nebuchadnezzar. These are quadruplets, two sets of twins, but these are quadruplets. And they regulate order, the black soil substance of earth, Alsar, the river waters of earth, Set, the red earth, Set, and the rainwaters of earth, Nebuchadnezzar, and their regulatory functions that we're dependent on in these various cycles in creation. And the spirits that animate these aspects of creation that we communicate with, and they possess us and everything else. But their mother and father is earth and sky, Geb and Nut. But then the mother and father of Geb and Nut are Shu and Tefnut. Shu's expansion, dealing with fire and so forth. Shu can mean fire in ancient Kemet. Shu in Akan means fire. Tefnut, Tef meaning to expectorate or spit or release water and so forth, that contractive force. Tef with Tefi is why in Akan, and Tafi means to spit or release water and so forth. So Shu and Tefnut are expansion and contraction, dealing with fire and water. Geb and Nut are dealing with earth and sky. So fire, water, earth, and air, those four elements which people talk about in pseudo-esoteric circles is coming from Shu and Tefnut, Geb, and Nut, actual divinities that we align with, communicate with, they possess us, direct us during divination, and so forth. But Shu and Tefnut are the mother and father of Geb and Nut. They are the grandmother and grandfather of Alsar, Set, and Nebuchadnezzar. So if you were to look at a matriclan blood circle in this regard, you have Set, a mother divinity. Her mother is Nut, dealing with the sky. Nut's mother is Tefnut, which is the grandmother of Set. But then Geb, or Shu, and Tefnut, they have a mother and father. That is Atem and Asase Nebuchadnezzar. Atem is the divinity. Asase Nebuchadnezzar, the female divinity. Atem, the male divinity. When you look at Atem, or Atem Kopa, Atemu Kopa, in Akan, he's Odomankoma from Kemet, Atemu Kopa, and Asase Nebuchadnezzar is one earth divinity. Asase Nebuchadnezzar is the other earth mother divinity. These are two female earth mother divinities, Asase Nebuchadnezzar and Asase Nebuchadnezzar. In Akan culture, that is Asase Afua and Asase Ya, the fertile earth mother divinity, Asase Afua, which is called Asase Nebuchadnezzar in ancient Kemet, and the term Hetepet means fertility and so forth, and it also includes the symbol of the vulva. Asase Nebuchadnezzar is Asase Ya in Akan. That's the quote-unquote barren Earth Mother, she's the one that receives the corpses. She also deals with the judgment with regard to ancestral culture, ancestral protocols, and so forth. In Yoruba, for example, that's Onile, the fertile Earth Mother, and Yewa, the barren, Earth Mother that governs cemeteries and so forth. It's Asase Nebetepet and Asase Nebepet, the wives of Atem and Kepra in ancient Kemet. Asase, and sometimes they'll spell her name Usase and Usas, I-U-S-A-A-S, or I-U-S-A-A-S-E-T, Usaset. But we know the vocalization is Asase because we still call her Asase in Akan every day as we invoke her. She's called the grandmother of the divinities, the wife of Atem. She's that grandmother of divinities. Her daughter is Tefnut. Her granddaughter is Nut. Her great-granddaughter is Aset. So, for example, when people say Nut is the great mother divinity, she's in the sky, she's the great mother divinity. And they'll say things like the Nile Valley Africans had such respect for the woman that they made her a deity, and she's the great mother deity, and she gave birth to all of the deities, and she's called Nut, and she's in the sky, and all the stars are in her belly and so forth, and she's the great mother. She's not even close to being the great mother. Aset is a mother divinity. Her mother is Nut, but then Nut's mother is Tefnut. Nut's grandmother is Asase Nebetepet. Her grandfather, of course, is Atem. But then the children of Atem and Asase Nebetepet, the mother and father of Atem and Asase Nebetepet, and of course Atem operates through the red setting sun. You will see him in the setting sun. Tem means to come to an end, to complete, and so forth. When the red setting sun sets in the west and touches the earth, the very first sun set in the creation of the universe, when the first primordial mound rose and the very first sun set on the earth and penetrated the primordial mound, that energy of Atem penetrated the mound and began to concretize. The term Tem means to bring to an end, to complete, to finish. Tem also means hard, compact substance. That fiery energy penetrating that primordial mound that had risen above the surface of the water, that wet primordial mound, just like a mound of clay and so forth that had water and that was formed with water and so forth, but then you put the watery thing that you formed into a kiln, into an oven, and then it hardens it and makes it into the sculpture that you were trying to achieve. When the first primordial mound rose up from the surface of the primordial water to become the first landmass of Earth, it was still wet and so forth, but then the sun set. Atem is in the red setting sun. They show him inside the red sun disk. That sun penetrates the primordial Earth. Atem, the red one, is sitting upon the primordial mound, concretizes. Tem, the primordial mound, brings an end or completion or finishing. Tem to that fashioned earth mound, and now it is able to sustain life. And of course, Atem, the red one, the first male divinity on earth, is where they get Adam. Adam in Hebrew, Dem meaning red or ruddy, being the first man on earth and so forth. They stole all of that. And we have that in our book dealing with NYANKOPON-NYANKONTON and so forth. But Ra and RA-RAIT, the creator and creatress, are the mother and father of Atem and Asase Nebetepet. That means RA-RAIT is the mother of Asase Nebetepet. She's the grandmother of Tefnut. She's the great-grandmother of Nut. She's the great-great-grandmother of Aset. So Nut is not even close to being the great mother divinity. Nowhere near that. And then you have Ra and RA-RAIT, the creator and creatress, who are born out of Nun and Nonet, the primordial energy of creation. Nonet is the mother of RA-RAIT, the creatress. And then Nonet and Nun, they have a mother and father, which is Amen and Amanne, the great father and great mother, who are the two complementary opposites who comprise what we call the supreme being, called Inyame and Inyamewa in Akan, and Lisa and Mawu in Vodun, and Olorun and Olokun in reality in Yoruba and so forth. We talk about that primordial story before some things change. where there are certain lineages within the Yoruba tradition who talk about pre-creation. There were only two divinities, Olorun and Olokun, their husband and wife. Sometimes people change those stories around and later on try to say that Olokun is a male or a male and female at the same time, which is not accurate, or a minor female divinity, a minor water divinity, and so forth. Primordially, Olorun and Olokun is Amen and Amanne. So you have this blood circle, matriclan blood circle, this inheritance. The Creatress emerges from the primordial energy that makes up the pre-creation state. So you have Amen and Amanne, the great mother and great father, the great hidden being. The root of the name Amen and Amennet is men, which means stable, permanent, and abiding. It also means that which is hidden, concealed. So, of course, if you close your eyes, your energy, your spirit exists. It is, quote-unquote, hidden or invisible. It's stable, permanent, and abiding. That's what the nature of your being. You're a hidden, quote-unquote, invisible, stable, permanent, and abiding entity. The primordial divinities, Amen and Amennet, have always been. They're the only two that have always been, and they've always been as a pair. Stable, permanent, and abiding men, hidden, quote-unquote, or concealed. They first give birth to Ka and Ka'at, which manifests as the black substance of space, the divine soul consciousness of Amen and Amennet. That black substance has the capacity to take any form, any shape, and so forth. They give birth to Hehu and Hehut, the expansion and contraction vitality of life within that black substance. Hehu and Hehut begin to expand and contract within that black substance. And then that expansion and contraction within the black substance creates waves of energy within the black substance. That birth of waves of energy within the black substance are the deities Nun and Nunet. And that's why their names are spelled with the wavy lines of energy for the in sound, the n sound, and then the vessels for the nu sound, and so forth. It's no different than a pot of water. If you ever pour some water into a pot, it's like the primordial black substance. It can take any shape or form, but when you add heat to that water, it begins to vibrate. The term He in ancient Kemet means heat. It also means expansion and contraction. It also means breath. It also means boundless, eternal, everlasting, and so forth. When you add He or heat to that primordial, unformed substance that has the capacity to take any shape whatsoever, that primordial Ka or Ka'at, when you add heat to that, then it begins to vibrate. Eventually, those vibrations manifest as waves of energy that move back and forth within the pot. You have the primordial Ka and Ka'at, the primordial substance, which is the black substance of space. You added the divinities Hehu and Hehut, the expansion and contraction, the breathing principle Hehu, Hehu, expanding and contracting within the primordial substance, which causes it to vibrate and begin to generate waves of energy that are now moving back and forth within the black substance. That is the birth of Nun and Nunet, that Nun, primordial, inert energy. Energy is manifest now, and it is waving within the primordial black substance, just like the water waving within the pot. But at some point, those waves become so rapid that Nun or Nun energy becomes a energy, and then there's an explosion of fire and light, which is Ra and RA-RAIT, the radiant energy that manifests as spheres of fire and light that cut through and pierce the black substance and carve out black spheres. Just like the raising of bubbles within the pot once the water is boiling, it goes from a wavy energy, the water being waves, to generating spheres, and the spheres rise up and pop or explode, carrying that heat or energy that was born of the substance. The rising up of the radiant energy of Ra and RA-RAIT, the divine living fire, light and fire of Ra and RA-RAIT exploding within the black substance. That's of course, the quote-unquote Big Bang. And Ra and RA-RAIT begin to spiral through the black substance, carving out black spheres. And those black spheres become the first black bodies. And the energy of Ra and RA-RAIT penetrate those black bodies and illuminate them, and those become the first stars. And of course, stars in physics are black bodies. And there's such thing as black body radiation and so forth. And from stars are projectiles that become the substance of those entities that would become planets. And the energy of Ra and RA-RAIT penetrates those planets and enliven them and so forth, including our planet in its primordial state, that black sphere. The energy of Ra and RA-RAIT penetrates that primordial sphere and separates the denser portions from the lighter portions and so forth, and you eventually develop an atmosphere and that primordial water. And then the energy of Ra and RA-RAIT penetrates the quote-unquote ocean floor and causes earthquakes on the ocean floor, forcing a portion of the ocean floor to surge upward, explode upward above the surface of the water to break through the surface of the water. And that is the first raised land. And in ancient Kemet, the term for raised land is Ka, male, and Ka'et, female, same as mountain, hills, raised land, Ka, also Kaka, and Akan, that's Koko, a hill or a raised land. And then Ra and RA-RAIT move through that primordial Ka, that primordial Ka'et, that primordial raised land, that first landmass that rose above the surface of the water to become the first landmass of Earth. And when these spirits, Ra and RA-RAIT, are moving through matter, they take on the titles Afura and Afuraitkait. Afu meaning flesh, but also meaning house or place of residence. When Ra is moving through matter, it becomes the house or place of residence for the spirit. It is called Afura, and RA-RAIT is called Afuraitkait. So Afura and Afuraitkait began moving through the primordial mound, the primordial Ka, the primordial Ka'et. It is thus called the Ka of Afura, Afuraka, the Ka'et of Afuraitkaitnit, which is the origin of the term Africa and so forth. As they move through that primordial mound and separation and development occurs, then you have that separation that gives birth to Atem, Asase Nebede Tepet, Shu, Tefnut, Gev, Nut, Asar, Aset, Set, Nebedhet, and so forth. So there's a primordial matriclan inheritance going all the way back to the progenitor, which is Ra, and the progenitress, which is RA-RAIT, and that's the key for Afuraitkaitnit women. She is the creatress that gives birth to everything in creation. All the divinities come through her, and that divine living energy that animates all created entities, and plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afurakani, Afurakani, human life only are created entities having a divine function. She gives that divine living energy from herself to us so that we can have divine living energy animating us. We receive that directly from RA-RAIT. This is our direct inheritance through that matriclan blood circle from her. It comes directly from her through Asase Nebede Tepet, through Tefnut, through Nut, through Aset and so forth, and to our people. And of course, she has many daughters and granddaughters and so forth. She has Sekhmet, she has Het-Heru, she has Baath, she has these different divinities, just like you have different organs in your body. Of course, Aset, as we said, is governing the reproductive system as an entity. Het-Heru is governing the fallopian tube structure and so forth. You have, as we talked about, Baath governing the pericardium and so forth. You have Wachet and Nekabet connected to the lungs and the magnetosphere and the trachea and everything. And you have these various divinities governing different aspects of your body. In the same fashion, the various divinities governing different features of creation. All children of the primordial progenitress, RA-RAIT, who utilizes the different stars, including our sun, to transmit her divine living energy. These are the most powerful power plants in creation, the stars, which includes our sun. And she utilizes these stars, specifically our sun, for us to transmit her divine living energy to us so we can receive that, build a bridge of energy from ourselves, our physical bodies, to her, so she can travel across that bridge of energy and influence us through that bridge of energy, that bridge of that Ba'at energy, influence us, empower us, illuminate us, guide us, replenish us, heal us, and so forth. That's the blood circle. We talk about bloodlines. We like to talk about blood circles because it's a loop. It's not linear. It's circular because we reincarnate. We keep coming back through these different cycles of time and blood circles and so forth. So we talk about blood circles. But that's the key with regard to our relationship to the abosom, specifically to the Creatress RA-RAIT. So therefore, when we're talking about Afuraitkaitnit women and reverencing Afuraitkaitnit women, we're not just talking about, simple adoration or saying, well, somebody is beautiful and so forth. Of course, there's a different notion of beauty when we talk about it. We're talking about Het Heru, a force in creation who has the capacity to draw together and fuse complementary opposites in harmony, which is a manifestation of order, and that is expressed as beauty, Nefer, the term Ikamet. So this is a divinity that we adhere to. So we're not just talking about somebody who looks nice and so forth. There's an energetic component that draws us to the person. Not talking about lust, where you have a conditioned response to a certain set of features that the Whites and Offspring told us we need to embrace, and that's pounded into your head and you run after that. We're talking about a natural attraction born of your divine function, Het Heru, recognizing that divine function and fusing you, drawing you to the person that you need to connect with. So when we're talking about beauty, talking about Het Heru, talking about the Afurakani man, Afuraitkaitnit woman, the Afurakani man, or Afurakani men reverencing the Afuraitkaitnit women, we're not just talking about empty adoration or nonsense like the black woman is God and all that foolishness. We have respect for our place in creation. There's a respect for more animals and their function in creation. There's a respect for Ndria, plant life, and its function in creation, its divine function. There's a respect for Asase, the earth, and the mineral life in earth and its divine function. There's a respect for Nipa, Afuraitkaitnit, human beings, human life, Afuraitkaitnit only, and its function in creation. There's a respect for the class of being called abosom divinities and their function in creation. So that notion of the black woman is God or the black man is God is pure stupidity. Negroes who are mimicking the whites and their offspring who seek to promote themselves as divine because they know that they're inferior and inadequate. So they would like to dominate and control. So they want to associate themselves with divinity and say they're the god or they're the goddess and people need to serve them. And then we fall into that foolish mindset because we've been on the surface feeling powerless. And the best way to make yourself feel better is to associate yourself with, I'm not a human, I'm a deity. I'm a god, I'm a goddess. That's childish and it's nonsensical in reality. So, when we're talking about this, so when we're talking about reverence, we're talking about aligning with the force in creation that understands our divine function, and we fuse with that divine function. When we come in contact with our harmonious complement, of course, the person who we would join with and fuse with through aware, through marriage, it's still not a possession, as we said. It's a fusion of complementary opposites. But when we come in contact with other individuals, other sisters, as Afurakani men, other sisters or sisters and so forth, we benefit from and are empowered by the dispensation of energy that emanates from them. We're guided by the illumination that emanates from them without seeking possession, no different than we are empowered by the energy of the sun that we receive and the illumination from the sun that we receive as well. Now there's another piece that we want to finish that up with, and it's the link that's also in the on the link. And let me put that link in the chat room real quick. Okay, so, and this is the other blog piece that we were talking about. So we have the image of Jata Bere and Jata Nini, a female lioness and a male lion. The title of the piece is When We Have the Same Vision, We Can Build the Pride. And again, when we utilize these principles, 90% of all of the dysfunction in relationships, not just dysfunction in relationships with regard to a marriage relationship, because, of course, if you have proper reverence, recognizing the divine function of the Afuraitkaitnit female and her being a descendant of the great progenitress RA-RAIT, and what the function of RA-RAIT is, and then she is a vessel of RA-RAIT to bring empowerment and illumination without possession. You're not seeking to possess or control, but seeking simply to fuse harmoniously and become empowered and enlightened, or illuminated or illumined, then that's a balanced relationship. And then when you're not seeking to possess all the other sisters walking around just because they are effulgent and radiant, and you're seeking to possess them, when you get beyond that and recognize their divine function, have proper reverence, meaning understanding of what their function is and seek to align with that, then all these dysfunctional relationships, there's people getting together and so forth, that's eliminated. And even when people actually do fuse together in marriage and they have conflict and so forth, it's based on a lack of understanding of the nature of the relationship, that matriclan relationship of who RA-RAIT is in relationship to the Afurakani women. But then we have this other piece here. When we have the same vision, we can build the pride. So we'll read through that, and it's a much shorter piece, but it puts a capstone on what we're talking about. Our Achinebwa, our animal totems, connected to our ancestral clans, and the Abosom, the deities who govern them, are not arbitrary. We are spirigenetically related to these Moa, these animals. We are born of the same energy complex, that of the Abosom, Orisha Vodu, Ntoru, so-called Neteru, Netetu, who birthed us. The Abosom, the deities, govern plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afurakani, human life, African black life only. Certain Moa animals operate under the jurisdiction of certain Abosom deities, and certain Afurakani, human beings operate under the same jurisdiction. This is why you find similarities not only in energetic expression, like fiery animals and fiery individuals and fiery plants and fiery minerals and so forth. This is why you find similarities not only in energetic expression, but body movement and phenotype between the Achinebwa animal totems and us. The facial appearance as well as our emotional expressions and interactions with each other naturally mirror those of the Achinebwa, the animal totems. When one is named Jata or Jataba, lion or lioness, in Akan or related languages, it is not just about power and authority. It is about a spirit-genetic link. The Abosom deities animate the Achinebwa, the animal totems, just as they possess and animate us and transform our spiritual and cellular being. This is why if one is a quote-unquote cobra, meaning one descendant of that particular clan, he can often see his female cobra complement right away, not only in energetic expression, but even in phenotype, body movement, character, nature, and so forth. If one is a quote-unquote eagle, she can see her male eagle complement right away. If one is a quote-unquote lion, he can see his lioness complement right away. In her eyes, body movement, emotional expression, and even phenotype. When we are of the same energy complex, we have a complementary vision. This is foundational for Amanne nation building, restoration, the building of a pride. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African ancestral culture has never been symbol without substance. It is the living, breathing cosmology. And this relationship between the Achinebwa animal totems, us recognizing one another, not only in energetic expression, but also phenotype and movement and, essence and so forth, that's directly related to this notion of animal totems being used in all of our cultures, ancestral cultures, inclusive in the Western Hemisphere, in the Hoodoo tradition and Juju and Bodun and so forth, of different animal totems that the ancestresses and ancestors send us at critical junctures in life. If you're a child of the Asona Abusia, for example, the Asona clan in Akan culture, you practice the hoodoo tradition. Your Nsamanfo have been sending that animal totem, the Kwakwa Dabi or the crow, to you on a regular basis since you were a child at critical junctures in your life. If somebody is a child of different clans, there are different animal totems, Achinimboa, for the different clans. So we recognize that, but just like here and all over the continent, in ancient Kemet, of course, all over the walls and symbols and everything, you will see either animals, the full body of the animals representing a divinity, or the body of the human being, the head of the animal, or some combination of the animal and the body. It is not a notion of the person, for example, talking about, Heru Imaket, the so-called Sphinx or Shesepanak, the so-called misnomer, the Sphinx and so forth. This is not a representation of the body of the animal and the head of the male, and it's talking about you need to, regulate your animal nature and sublimate your animal nature so you can represent the higher self and the higher man. It has nothing to do with that. That's a Eurocentric interpretation coming from, pseudo-occultism and pseudo-metaphysics and all of that other nonsense and Masonic orders and so forth. And when the Whites in Arab Spring, the Greeks and Romans invaded Kemet, and they started corrupting tradition and manufacturing foolishness like the emerald tablets and Hermes and so forth and the Hermetic tradition. This is not the survival of the culture of ancient Kemet. It is the corruption of the culture of ancient Kemet. And these speculations that entered into these, foolish orders have been projected as some ancient arcane wisdom, and they're not. What's actually happening when you see the Shesepanak or Heru Imaket, you're seeing the animal totem of the deity, the sacred shrine in the animal sphere for that specific divinity. And of course, you're talking about that lion animal totem, that Jata lion animal totem dealing with Heru Bedesi, which is also Heru Imaket or Herakuti and so forth. You're talking about a force in creation that will manifest through in the animal sphere. They will utilize that particular animal, possess that particular animal, and utilize that animal as a shrine to project their spiritual energy and send that animal to us to carry that energy to us. Or in the plant sphere or the animal sphere, depending on what the divinity is, they will use their specific plant that carries their energy, and we go and pick that plant and utilize that to heal a specific part of our, physical body, or that certain mineral life, animal life, and so forth. They possess different animals, utilize them as shrines to transmit their divine living energy to us and consciousness to us. They do the same thing with the solar orbs, planetary, lunar, black substance of space, rivers, oceans, and so forth, just like they possess us spiritually through spirit possession, ritual song, ritual dance, and people get possessed, and the spirits are operating through the body and moving through the person and communicating with the community. Just like they will possess a human being, they will possess a sacred animal totem and communicate with the person through the animal totem. Possess a plant totem, and when you go out into nature, as we talked about last night with our sister Ama Asasea Jave, the way she creates her tinctures for healing, going out into nature and communicating with the Abosom through the agency of those plant totems, they will speak through those plant totems that they possess. The same thing with mineral life, they will possess, and of course planets are inclusive of mineral life. They will possess the sun, possess the moon, possess the planetary bodies, possess the black substance of space, possess different features of the earth mother, possess the atmosphere, possess the rivers, possess the oceans, and so forth. So that Shesepanak, so-called Sphinx, Heru Makeda, Herakuti, that's showing that this is an animal totem, a sacred animal totem, through which this divinity, Herakuti or Heru Bedeti, Heru Bedat, who's called Bedat or Benna in Akan, male deity governing hot metal and war, iron and so forth, the immune system and so forth. He utilizes that animal totem to carry his energy into creation. It has nothing to do with someone using the human, spirit to sublimate the animal spirit within the person. That's totally inactive. So, and it's the same when you see Bast, the head of the cat on the body of the woman. They're showing you, on one hand, a woman who's governed by that divinity in certain respects, and sometimes they're just showing the deity itself and showing that, you know, she possesses females. Certain females are part of her matriclan. They carry her energy totem. Bast is governing their head, literally. So you have a sister who's governed by Bast or a sister who's governed by Sekhmet. Then they'll show the body of a female and the head of the divinity, showing that some of these sisters are governed by these different divinities. That is their head Orisha, head Abosom, head Vodun, and so forth. So this is what we wanted to go over. We wanted to show that connection between RA-RAIT, the progenitress of all of creation, and of course, with regard to human beings, Afurakani people only, the direct progenitress of all Afuraitkaitnit women. We have the same reverence and respect for the Afuraitkaitnit woman that we do for RA-RAIT, and she dispenses her energy and illumination through the Atenit, the sun. We have that same level of respect and accord that same level of respect and reverence to her as we do to RA-RAIT. We receive that empowerment and illumination without seeking to possess or control. Then we alleviate these problems, 90% of these problems, and we can enter into solid relationships and through, of course, Bast, as we talk about in the Bast series, sustain these relationships over time. And this is foundational to Ancestral nation building and Amanne Nationism, which, of course, is the purification of nationalism. Okay, so if there are any questions or comments, you can hit the number 1 so we can see that your hand is raised. Part of that process, of course, one of the links in the chat room, well, I'm sorry, not the chat room, but in the promotion for the show, where we go into detail about many of these different things, is OBAATAN, Afuraitkaitnit, or African Womanhood. That's one of the most recent books that we've released. That is part of a process. The book is released. There are workshops associated with that. It's a complement to the book ODWIRA, Afurakani Manhood, that we released a number of years ago, 9 years ago, and so forth. So now that we have ODWIRA, Afurakani Manhood, the book, we have a workshop associated with that, a training associated with that for young Afurakani males as well as men. Now we have OBAATAN, Afuraitkaitnit Womanhood, and workshops associated with that for Afuraitkaitnit women based upon the book and so forth. We're having our first retreat, the Happy Merit retreat, the hibernation retreat, which is actually next month, February 16th through the 19th. We'll be having the ODWIRA Afurakani Manhood session. I will be conducting that with the brothers. OBAATAN Afuraitkaitnit Womanhood session based on the book will be conducted by Dr. Iya Adwa. She'll do that with the sisters. We will also be having the joint session, Patah Sasatem, as well as another joint session. This will be taking place the weekend of February 16th through the 19th. People will arrive on February 16th, Friday, afternoon, evening. The sessions will take place on Saturday and Sunday in the morning and early afternoon. People will leave on Monday morning, but morning and early afternoon, and then in the late afternoon and evening, people will have that free time to themselves to explore the area, because the retreat is on Edisto Island, South Carolina, which is one of the Gullah Islands, an ancestral sanctuary and so forth. So this is our first Happy Merit hibernation retreat. As we mentioned in a previous broadcast, because we had a couple of cancellations, we had closed registration a few weeks ago. Because of a couple of last-minute cancellations, we had a few spaces open up. 4 spaces opened up. 2 people got those spaces. There are 2 spaces left now. If you would like to attend that retreat next month in South Carolina, you can go to the website, the Happy Merit page on our website, and register. It's first come, first served. There are 2 spaces left. You can let us, or just go directly to the site, because whoever takes those 2 spaces, then that's it, and then registration will be closed after that. So you can do that ASAP. Of course, it's coming up very quickly, so we only have about 6 weeks until the retreat. So we want to fill those spaces. Before we get on the call, we also have one other piece with regard to these animal totems and the Afuraitkaitnit woman and the reverence of the Afuraitkaitnit woman. We recently, in November, released our first Black Swan Life T-shirt, and it's part of that Black Swan Life movement, dealing with the nature of the intrinsic beauty of the Afuraitkaitnit woman, and we were recalibrating that consciousness connected, of course, to Het Heteru, that Black Swan Life movement. You'll see that Ames Nefertari is the image, female image, the patron ancestress of Black Swan Life, and we have the symbolism connected to the Sankofa symbol and the Black Swan itself and the primordial waters and the Medutu, making up the terminology and so forth. So we go into detail about that cosmology. Once again, as we said earlier, we are trying to get to a certain number of shirts to order as far as a bulk order so we can utilize the Black-owned printing company to launch the first, printing of the first batch of shirts. So if you have not ordered your shirt, we're going to go through that this week and place that order, because we need to do that this week. If you have not ordered your shirt yet, you can order one for your sister, yourself, your aunt, niece, one of the females or a couple of females in your family for promoting this proper notion of divine harmony, of beauty, of the intrinsic nature, elegance, and beauty of the Afuraitkaitnit woman through that cosmology, through that shirt. So you can go to the Black Swan Life page on our shirt now, place that order. We would like to go tomorrow and make that bulk order at the Black printer. We don't want to have to use the non-Black printer. They're less expensive, and they print one shirt at a time. We prefer to use the Black printer, but we need to get a bulk of shirts first. So please go to the Black Swan Life page on our website and place your order now before you forget, so we can get out there and launch this movement. So we're going to go to the phone line real quick. Reachable on the phone line, number 7412. You had a question or comment?
What's up, Brother Quasi? I just wanted to touch on the animal totem piece. I just called in, and that's where you were at, and you're in the show, and something that had been on my mind, like for the past couple of weeks or so, is the importance of removing, just not just being mindful of, what we show our children in particular on television relative to shows, cartoons, movies that have animals that talk, like lions and dogs and, so on and so forth. But also, like just having certain products, in our home, like, cereal boxes, whatever products that we tend to give to our children, and how so often the products that we give to our children and the things that we show them on television always there's a tendency to use animals to advertise and to convey whatever message, and how when we do that, we actually further cut ourselves and especially our children off from being able to recognize the importance of animal totems in our daily lives. So like when you have some popsicles in your freezer, and the popsicles are for the children, and they have, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something like that, and the turtles are named after like Donatello and Michelangelo and whoever else, and then they have these European sounding voices, and you show the children that, then it serves as like a jamming frequency for you to be able to be in contact with, the various animal totems when they actually show up in your life. So, I've heard that, like in the Yoruba tradition, how the turtle is a totem for one of Shango's totems. And I'm like, man, you know what I'm saying? You might have a child who is, who has Shango governing their head. And here it is, if they're not taught that or shown that, or, or maybe, just whatever the case may be, and you're giving them something as far as cartoons, as far as toys, as far as products, as far as food, cereal, snacks, and you see something like that on your, in that vein, but not, you get it through that particular avenue, then it just makes it that much more difficult for that child to be receptive to, makes it harder for them to be receptive to how real animal totems in real life would communicate with them, especially if they're being flooded with that type of stuff. So that was kind of like a thought that I had for like the past couple of weeks, why it's important not only to be very mindful of what we show our children. You're watching something like The Lion King, and here it is, this Simba character sounding like somebody, like a white boy from California or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So in their mind, that's how they process that. But also a lot of the products that we have in our households that we just unknowingly give to our children. We think we're just giving them snacks or whatever type of food, but we're also conditioning them through the images and the misappropriation of those animals, those animal images, and just why it's important to like really, really, stop that, as a people, So that was just something that I've been thinking about like the past, 2 weeks or so. And I got on the phone and, you actually, kind of going in on the animal totem piece. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that.
No, man, I'll say that's a very good point. And you're right, they'll use, Simba being a, childish like a, surfer in California. And then, of course, the intelligent, regal animals all have a British accent. And they're in, the Serengeti or something. So it's ridiculous. But the reason why they do that, of course, is like you said, though imagery is powerful. But with regard to children specifically, the first physical manifestations of divinity that children interface with is animals. They become very excited because it's raw, powerful energy of authority. They see these living beings that carry the energy of whatever divinity that governs them, and they live in harmony exactly with their nature. So they are a natural shrine for these forces in nature. So the first physical manifestation of divinity outside of their parents who are children of specific Abosom, Orisha, and so forth, but when they see animals, that's the first manifestation of divinity they see. So and children dream about animals and draw animals and pretend like they are animals and so forth, naturally, instinctively. So when the Whites in Our Spring recognize that, of course, the first thing they do is flood our children with animals, all the little cartoons. It's not full of cartoons with kids. Like you said, it's always full of cartoons with animals that are talking. And, of course, they have white voices and everything else, but the character and the values that they promote are self-destructive, Eurocentric, self-hating for our people values placed in the image that normally would represent divinity immediately. So they have a totally warped perception, and they don't have the proper respect or reverence cultivated when they see those animals. When we introduce our children to animals initially, like, people who are culturally grounded, when they have children, they don't let them watch TV. They're growing and developing as, infants and getting older and learning how to walk and everything else. One of the first things you show them is nature shows. And you try to get the nature shows where the European isn't talking through every movement that the animal's making, so they're not associating his voice with animals. Right. But you let them watch nature shows because they can see natural order taking place, the interfacing of living beings functioning in harmony with the nature in which they are created without, deviation. They also see life and birth. They also see killing. They see death, and that's a natural part of, the created order as well. So they're not devastated with regard to death. They're not devastated with regard to certain things happening or injury and certain things. They begin to, understand the balance and the different changes of life. Like in Akan culture, we have the Adinkra symbol in Chin Chin, and it says, OBAATAN in Chin Chin, life is full of twists and turns. So it's a reality that life changes. Life is full of twists and turns, but it infers you must learn how to adapt. You don't shrink from switches or changes in life. You expect that things will not always be the same. Things will shift. But as an adult, the mature response is what carries you through the day and so forth. So children begin to learn those lessons just by watching the natural manifestation of the deities' animal totems functioning harmoniously. And we introduce that. That's why we name our children with, certain animal totems, named after the animal totems that govern us and so forth. So, yeah, that's a very good point. And the whites and offspring understand that, and this is why they put so much focus on animals with children, because they become very excited, and then they make the animal sound gay and sound weak and all kinds of nonsense and so forth. So that's very important. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and absolutely. Just one last thing, too, that I thought about, too, is even just how we tend to even disrespect the animals themselves, the totems, and the spirits that animate the totems themselves, in the way that we use animals to refer to each other in a derogatory fashion. So when you hear like all men are dogs, or when you hear men referring to women as, female dogs, or this person is a chicken because they're a coward, and it's like, well, what if the chicken or this particular, type of bird is sacred to this particular divinity? Then how do you process that? How do you get past that? So I mean, we even disrespect the animal totems and the spirit that that animates the different animals in the way that we as adults misappropriate. So that's just another aspect of it that just came to mind. Yeah, but that's pretty much it.
Absolutely. We appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna continue listening to the show. Keep on with the good work, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, and we have one more call on the phone line, number 9440. You had a question or comment? It's up on the phone line, number 9440. You had a question or a comment?
Brother Quasi, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry to ask this question on this broadcast. I tried to ask yesterday, but my phone disconnected, and when I called back, it was too late. My question is, when you were talking about Tahuti and Seshat, you were talking about, obviously, them being the god and goddess of divine wisdom. One of the things that I've been seeing more and more by the whites and the offspring is this promotion of artificial intelligence. And so as I look through social media and I hear people talking, everybody kind of has a different stance on what artificial intelligence is. You even have the whites and the offspring asserting that, they're building robots, that they're, now inserting artificial intelligence. You see, there's the white female scientist, and she allegedly married a black woman and created some type of robot, and allegedly had downloaded all of the information from this black woman into this particular robot or whatever as a form of artificial intelligence. I'm trying to see what, from a African ancestral religion perspective, what is artificial intelligence? How should our people be responding to these notions, of artificial intelligence and how that's going to kind of take us into another realm of knowledge and wisdom?
Well, with anything, of course, the whites and their offspring are seeking some process to control the movements and the minds and the, operation of our people. That's first. Secondly, they're not going to tell the truth about what they are doing. They're not going to tell the truth about how far along they are in the process or how far they are not along in the process. But what they're always going to do is seek to use any kind of technology to weaponize technology against our people. And they're going to always seek to be in control. So anything that they utilize, whether they call it, AI, artificial intelligence, and they start promoting these ideas that it's possible that the robots will be able to think for themselves and take over the world and all this other nonsense. That's part of the pathology of the whites and their offspring. This is the future that they envision for themselves on a certain level. But at the same time, there's certain things that they're not going to talk about, and it's always that everything that they put forward, they're in control of. Anything they download in any fashion, it's always political, and it's always something that they're seeking to promote. They're going to be in control of whatever technology it is. It's not going to be something that's running rampant and they can't control it. That's part of the propaganda, the running game portion, to make it appear that they're just scientists and they're just exploring scientific, endeavors, and they may make mistakes, and hopefully they don't, and we have to set up ethics panels to make sure that, there are no violations. So that's all running game for the population. But on the other side, they know exactly what they're doing, they know exactly what they're programming, and they're seeking to use any form of technology to weaponize it against our people, to try to preserve their existence and increase our death rate and decrease our birth rate and increase our incarceration rate and increase our drug addiction rate and increase the dissexuality, homosexuality, prevalence of that in the community, to always try to suppress, our people, our growth and development and expansion, and increase theirs. So it's always the same piece. It's always the same, it always goes back to the same focus.
I thought it was really interesting, just even tying into what you just said, that their, prime example, like, their biggest accomplishment, in the scientific community right now is they created this robot, with artificial intelligence, but that they chose to get the information from a lesbian black woman. I was like, of all the people they could have chose, every scientist that's working on this project is white. But, the person they chose was a black, lesbian woman. So I thought that was really interesting. So my last question is, just with that.
Well, I would also say that everything is, of course, with the whites and their offspring, which we always teach our children as well. Nothing they do is arbitrary. Everything is political. So they can say that it was a lesbian black woman. That doesn't mean that it was, but they will put forward that narrative because they're trying to normalize and make it part of our normative behavior to embrace, lesbianism, which is dissexuality, perversity, and to endear our people, specifically our sisters first and foremost, but endear our people to the quote-unquote technology by saying, this comes from us. It's almost like, we're talking about RA-RAIT as the progenitress, and everything, we're part of her collective, descendants and so forth. She governs our collective ancestry on the female side. They'll try to make her the RA-RAIT of artificial intelligence, and
because now she's the mother of all of
her. And she's our great mother, a great lesbian mother who's the head of our artificial intelligence, and we should endeavor and reverence her. Like, wow, this came from a black woman. In fact, a gay black woman, so we can't be bashing homosexuality. Artificial intelligence is based on a gay black woman. So that's all political, seeking to, weaponize that kind of information. And that leads to the suppression of our population, encouraging dissexuality, homosexuality, and exploring that when people are adolescents and even in kindergarten and so forth. That little political move sets up, in the end, the suppression and hopefully for them, the decrease in our population and the increase in dissexuality.
Okay, so the last part of this that was a little bit confusing to me is I've read several different articles, and the promotion of artificial intelligence has been kind of split. One is like, it's just an advancement in technology. The other one is like, it's harnessing this knowledge because, there's this, which really they're trying to describe God, but they have no concept of, Inyamewa. So they're trying to, verbalize this and say, we're harnessing knowledge from the supreme being. So, just as me talking to my children as a mother, I can kind of go through the steps of saying this is propaganda and this is kind of the cycle, but, I don't fully understand what even the assertion is. If they're saying that they're trying to harness, this knowledge from the Supreme Being, or if this is just supposed to be like I'm downloading information and then I'm kind of letting it replicate, kind of like how cells split. When a child is when a woman becomes pregnant, what is conception? I'm trying to understand just from a parent perspective how I would address this, because my kids aren't small, they're bigger. So my answers have to be a little more detailed, because this is being discussed in a classroom setting and has become a part of the curriculum.
Well, it's a couple of things. On one hand, it's no different than when scientists are studying biology and so forth, or they're engaged in genetic, engineering and GMOs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they'll act as though they're placing, ethical concerns on the forefront and all that kind of stuff. That makes people believe that they're just engaged in scientific, exploration, basically. But in reality, they're weaponizing, biology and seeking to create viruses and, epidemics to, destroy our people, through chemical and biological warfare without us recognizing that that's what they're really trying to do. We're just believing it has to do with science, and sometimes they go overboard and make a mistake, and that's the only problem. And it's the same thing on this side. They'll pretend like they're just exploring and trying to develop new technologies and draw in information and have it replicate itself and so forth. But in reality, they're seeking ways to, weaponize technology to destroy our people on different levels. But they'll pretend like it's all about scientific endeavor. But in reality, it's a military operation. So anything they put forward with regard to explanations and what they're trying to do, we always have to look behind the scenes. And the end game is some form of suppression and eradication and enslavement mentally or even biologically of our people. They'll use artificial intelligence to, affect biology and, diseases and replicating diseases that were, taken care of or, suppressed through vaccination and other things in the past and try to bring things back. I mean, they're always trying to figure out ways to, perpetuate themselves and eradicate our people.
Okay.
So their explanations, you read between the lines, it always gets down to that. But then we have to recognize the fact that we have our own tools and root work and so forth as part of that. But we have our methods as well that we have access to.
Right. That's kind of where I'm trying to get to. That I definitely can explain it to them in that way. I think children just kind of naturally, what goes on, and especially my children go to school, so I guess it makes me a hypocrite to a certain extent, but it is what it is for the time being. I homeschooled them before. When I got divorced, I just couldn't do it anymore. But when my kids go to school and they hear all these things, it's like it starts to create this fear, and that's kind of the goal, this fear that they will not be able to defend themselves. So by you explaining it from a warfare perspective and me being able to kind of tie in that last piece of what you said, reminding them of the tools that are available to them, the weapons that are available to them that have always been successful, for thousands of years. And I think that's where the tie-in is. So I really appreciate you being patient with me in answering that question. Madasta.
No, I said we appreciate the call. And that, of course, is the first stage of, warfare is generating that intimidation of fear to try to, freeze somebody in their tracks. You have a greater capacity to control an individual if they're gripped by fear and frozen by fear, and they're not able to process and think. And, in fact, attuned to RA-RAIT and her empowerment and illumination, because they're blocking that out or repelling it because they're controlled by, that little field of quote-unquote artificial intelligence or misinformation or projections coming from the enemy, Ashiwari, for the whites and their offspring and what they're engaged in. So, okay, so we're going to It's only a couple of minutes left. We're going to end the broadcast here. Again, please go to we want to, once again, move towards printing out the Black Swan Life T-shirts. If you have not seen the shirts and seen the Cosmology, cosmological foundation for them, you can see that on the Black Swan Life page. You can go to that right now, g.fo.com/blackswanlife.html. Of course, that's a hashtag, so you've seen us post that on Facebook, and we have a Black Swan Life page dealing with the intrinsic elegance of the Afuraitkaitnit woman. So this is part of a movement. Of course, eventually we'll have not only that, but we'll have a documentary dealing with that and transforming the minds of Afuraitkaitnit women wherever we exist in the world. So this is part of that launch. So please support that effort. We thank everyone for supporting the work that we've been doing. We're going to make a post later on Facebook over the past 12 months. Our year begins in September. So that 12-month period from September 22nd to September 22nd, we've had over 50,000, actually around 55,000 downloads of the free ebook versions of our books. We have 29 books out. So our information is getting out. Of course, if you look at an author who, just a general author publishing a book, typically in our community, they're not moving 55,000 books in a year. But, of course, we have the free ebook versions because we recognize the information is too important to hold ransom, especially when people, because of the economy, they may not have an extra $10 or $11 to purchase a book. They may be living paycheck to paycheck, and they don't have the luxury of just saying, I'm not going to buy some food today, I'm going to buy a book. So we need to have that information accessible, and it's accessible via the net. So even though the vast majority, 90+% of people get the information through the free downloads, and we have 55,000 downloads of our books in a 12-month period, the word is getting out. We can get out more of the softcover versions for free if we get that support of the books as well. So if you support the work that we are doing, you can go to the NYANKOPON page, the publications page, and make a book purchase as well. If you support what we're doing, you can see that we're getting the information out through thousands of free downloads and so forth. So we're doing that kind of work and impacting the community and transforming lives in that way. If you support that kind of work that we have a track record of doing, then please go to the NYANKOPON page, the publication page. Take a couple of minutes. You can purchase some books. We have the first 7 books for $40, which is a sale. You can make a donation if you would like. You can donate to our documentary movie film project. But whatever support you can give, we would like to receive that, of course, so that we can continue doing the work and expand the work. Within the next 12 months, instead of having 55,000 downloads, we could have 155,000 downloads of the books, and that's not a goal that's unreachable. We can definitely do that. We've had over 2.7 million hits on the website over the past 12 months, just on the OJ.fo site alone. So we can definitely, a couple of years ago, we were at 1.1 million, then we went up to 3 million and so forth, close to 3 million. So we definitely have the capacity to do this. The more support that we receive, of course, the more we are able to expand the work. So we get the 55,000 free downloads, but once people purchase and support, then we can expand even the softcover books. And because we give away those for free, we've given away over 1,500 softcover versions of our books at our free events over the past year or so, a couple of years. So, again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning into the broadcast. Please go to our publications page for all that information. And Yebeshi Abio, we will meet again. What's up?